Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're so glad to welcome you as part of our community tonight. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and distributed live stream. By entering this virtual meeting room, you give your consent to be recorded and distributed by Simeon Morrow Public Speaking and Presentations and other third parties. If you prefer to not be recorded, please turn off your camera and microphone and or go to the Facebook Live video feed, the link to which I'll now place in the chat room. For a better experience, please turn off your microphone and set your video to gallery view. Tonight, our featured guests are Tilman Hecker, the creator of Rundfunkchor Berlin's The World to Come concert installation, and Birke Bertelsmeyer, a composer commissioned to write new music for the world to come. We are also pleased to be joined by Professor Lino Rivera of St. Mary's College of California. Mr. Hecker, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a director for the stage mostly. I live and work in Berlin. I have collaborated with Birke and with the Rundfunkchor and with other theaters and opera houses in Germany and abroad.
Fantastic. And welcome, Ms. Bertelsmeyer.
Hello, nice to be here. I'm a composer I live also in Berlin, but I'm originally from NRW, North Rhine-Westphalia. I'm also a pianist, but my main work is composer.
Okay, Mr. Hecker, can you tell us a little bit about the Rundfunkchor Berlin? What is it exactly?
The Rundfunkchor Berlin is a chorus that has been founded almost 100 years ago. They will celebrate their 100th anniversary, I believe, in 25. Not 100% sure, but it's coming up soon. And it has been the radio chorus of then the former East Germany, and whereas the West had the Rias Kammerchor. And then after the wall came down and after the reunification, they kept these four, actually, they also have two orchestras, an Eastern and West orchestra, these four ensembles under one roof, basically, under one, GmbH is the term.
And Ms. Bertelsmeyer, can you tell us why all of this, one orchestra in the East, one in the West, one choir in the East, one in the West?
Because we were divided one time, some years ago, but it would be sad when one country don't have orchestra, one don't have a choir. And I'm happy that we have still two, could be much. We have many orchestras in Berlin, but it's great. Every orchestra has other history, every orchestra has other tradition, and I hope it can stay like that.
So in fact, Ms. Bertelsmeyer, it's a point of pride since the wall came down and Berlin was reunited that there are two of everything. Is that right?
I didn't analyze about that, but I think yes, as two, also could be more than two. So opera houses, they're more than two, but yes, yeah.
It's probably a good thing to have a variety and not a centralized state opera house, but several of those in the same city, and it's almost rare.
And I hope it stays like that. When you see in Germany, it happens like SWR Orchestra, there was one in Stuttgart, one Freiberg, one in Mainz. They get together and they say, we don't have so much money from the radio, so we have to put everything together. I hope it stays.
And Ms. Bertelsmeyer, you said that you come from North Rhine-Westphalia, tell us about coming to Berlin and how what a different atmosphere it is than in the west of West Germany.
It was not directly, but yes, I am feeling the difference, but I'm already feeling the difference in Berlin. For example, I live in the west part of Berlin, and it's another world to go to the east part. I also lived in Rome, I also lived in Paris, and sometimes I think it's really like leaving the country. Still, it's less than a few years ago, but Berlin, I think the special thing in Berlin is that it's a different kind of living, the different, yeah, it's multi-culti.
And Mr. Hecker, what's your experience?
I live in the east. I come from the east. I'm from northeast Germany, and I still live in East Berlin. And I'm not necessarily sure that it's a division between east and west that's still going on, but it's definitely still a decentralized city with very different little quarters or Bezirke, as they're called, with a very special energy in a very special neighborhood. If you come from Charlottenburg and you go to Kreuzberg, it's both the west, but they're very, very different already by just the people who live there, the atmosphere in the streets, and so on. So that is nice.
Okay, so I'd like to bring in right away Professor Lino Rivera of St. Mary's College of California. Lino?
Yes, guten Abend. It's very good to have you here. Now, just because I have to leave at around 7:30 your time, because we have a student recital coming up here at my university, I would like to ask this question. Since you came from the eastern part of Berlin, has there been a difference between the training when East Berlin was still under the Soviet rule and what you have experienced now that you are in the West? What's the difference in the kind of training, musical training, between the two?
That is, I'm not that old, unfortunately, to be able to answer your question, because I just, I was 9 when the wall came down, so I had my training and education pretty much in a united Germany. Although I guess that the Russian training or the Soviet regime training is said to be very hard and very strict and strong or forceful, which can be good for one kind of artist and can be terrible for another kind of artist. But there's always like, it's very, the cliche is that it's very disciplined and very cruel and very cold and very harsh and very like achievement oriented and not so much process oriented.
The good thing in the East, I think, when the wall came down, I was also 9 years old. They proposed me to go to Weimar to a public school where you pay nothing, you get lessons, you get training, and this in the West doesn't exist. Like, you have to pay much to have a piano lesson, you have to pay much to have theory lesson, and in the East it was more. Perhaps like in Russia, it was more harder, but when you are good, you get the help so that everybody can nearly do it when he's good, when he has talent. I think, so there are many good musicians from the East.
Yes, you are so young, because you know what? I was there in Berlin and I actually chipped part of the wall when it was coming down. So you were 9 years old during that time. My goodness, you are really young. Sie sind sehr jung.
Auch nicht mehr so jung, aber ja.
Good. Okay. So let's take a look right away at the beginning of the documentary of the world to come.
Projekt The World to Come wäre mir oder uns zu keinem anderen Werk von Beethoven, zu keiner anderen Messe eingefallen als zur Missa Solemnis. Maya Arad-Yassur, die israelische Dramatikerin, hat den Titel gefunden in dem Libretto der Messe. Es ist der Schluss vom Credo, es ist der Text der großen Chorfuge Et vitam venturi seculi amen, das Leben der zukünftigen Welt oder The World to Come.
Have mercy all alone, nobody. Have mercy.
Have mercy, the devil, the Alpha and Omega, the destruction to come, the world to come.
This one, real. You see, I take these glasses off, she looks like a regular person, doesn't she? Put them back on, formaldehyde test. That's what we got.
Ohne Beethoven würde diese Komposition nicht so existieren können, wie sie jetzt existiert.
Ich finde, die Missa Solemnis hat ein Wahnsinns-Energiepotenzial. Da ist so viel Energie vorhanden und so viele Ideen, dass es scheint, als ob Beethoven gar nicht mal die Zeit hat, die Ideen weiter auszuarbeiten. Das heißt, jedes Mal, wenn man umblättert, dann kommt wieder was Neues auf dich zu. Und beim ersten Hören ist es vielleicht so, dass
Existieren können, wie sie jetzt existiert.
ich finde, die Missa Solemnis hat ein Wahnsinns-Energiepotenzial. Da ist so viel Energie vorhanden und so viele Ideen, dass es scheint, als ob Beethoven gar nicht mal die Zeit hat, die Ideen weiter auszuarbeiten. Das heißt, jedes Mal, wenn man umblättert, dann kommt wieder was Neues auf dich zu. Und beim ersten Hören ist es vielleicht so, dass vieles gewaltig klingt und sehr groß, aber wenn man mehr mit der Musik umgeht und man sie besser kennenlernt, dann bemerkt man, dass er einfach auch sehr vieles reingesteckt hat, das sehr empfindlich und sehr zart und sehr romantisch, würde ich fast sagen.
Ich habe die Missa Solemnis sowohl Angst als auch Glauben gespürt. Wie die Natur auch, ist nicht alles schön. Musik muss nicht nur schön sein. Das Stück erzählt all dies für mich und auch, dass der wahre Glaube keine Angst hat.
Ich denke, Birke war monatelang der zentrale Punkt in diesem Projekt. Die hat ja selber sehr viel neue Musik geschrieben und andererseits aber auch Musik von den Gästen mit verarbeitet und in dem Stück reingepasst.
Fantastic. So, Mr. Hecker, can you tell us a little bit about how you got the idea of this concert installation? It's quite extraordinary.
Right. It was Hans Rehberg, who unfortunately cannot join us tonight because of an emergency, but he had asked me to think about the Missa Solemnis, to come up with an idea for the Missa Solemnis. And my spontaneous thought was to create a TV drama series out of the material. And we are actually still in development of this TV series. And the concert installation, in short, it's a very abstract thing to say, was the TV drama series without a plot and pure music. It was a music and space experience that came from the idea to create a TV show based on the material, especially based on the libretto, the liturgical material, the Ordinario Misse. Jan Assmann was here a few months ago in this very same talk. He wrote this book, Kult and Kunst, about the Mass and about the Missa Solemnis and how it treated this liturgical ancient compilation of texts, that is the Kyrie, Gloria, Credo, Sanctus, Benedictus, and Agnus Dei.
Wow. So, Ms. Bertelsmeyer, can you tell us, the music director, Gijs Leonaars, he was just talking about you as a central figure to this concert installation. Can you tell us about how you got involved and what your contribution is? So sometimes I hear Beethoven's music, and sometimes I hear something that could be Beethoven's music, but I'm not sure. Is that your music?
In a way, I did that what a composer does, because componere means taking together everything and putting it in a score that they can play. I composed myself something. I composed myself, and I tried the artists that are not normally writing the music, like Martha Planning to Rock, to realize the music of them to a score that the orchestra and the choir can understand. And this was really different work. Also, I tried to put it with Tillmann together and with other people together in a big form, so that it was always a dialogue. It was a dialogue between me and the composers, between Tillmann. It was a work in progress, or really it was, yeah.
So, Ms. Bertelsmeyer, is it correct to say you worked as kind of an intermediary between these composers of different music genres in order to help write it down and help the orchestra and choir understand it? Is that what you did?
It was also every time different. For some, I only wrote it down. For other, they came to my flat, and they showed me a part, and I said, wow, this part is perfect for my part. And then we put it together, and then we constructed. So some parts I cannot say if it's my part or if it's also with the music you heard in the beginning. You could say I hear Beethoven, but in reality it was really a small part of Beethoven. It was really put in another, when it's Beethoven, 5 notes, 6 notes. This is the work couldn't exist, that I said in the beginning, without Beethoven, because we started with Beethoven and then we went to our music.
So when you hear it, how should somebody listen to it? If it's because I imagine most people think they're going to come to hear the Missa Solemnis of Beethoven, but what you're saying is it's kind of that and a lot more?
I think you don't need to know something before you go inside. When you know the Missa, you hear different. When you don't know the Missa, you can hear it also different. It's music. I hope it speaks for itself, but there are more things behind also that are really interesting, and especially in this kind of installation that was not corresponding between only the music, between the composer and artist. It was also corresponding with 1 and 2 orchestras, 1 ensemble outside, a choir in another room. So it was this was also the composition, but it was not the classical composition that starts in 1 room and ends in 1 room.
Wow. So let's take another look at this to kind of get an idea of its complexity.
I believe in the destruction of self to make way for the resurrection of peace. Peace. Good news.
Lamb in our mouths, death to pass over.
Flesh to flesh.
Rosa Alcalá in ihrem großartigen Gedicht Dear Maria nennt Maria das vierte Rad am Wagen der Trinität. Und das bringt mich zu Jam, Planning to Rock. Zuerst Planning to Rock und dann Jam. Eine non-binäre Künstlerin, Musikerin, die ganz politische Musik macht, die eine Botschaft in ihrer Musik hat, die das Patriarchat ganz dezidiert angreift, die Strukturen, in denen wir leben, hinterfragt und darin eine kongeniale Partnerin für dieses Projekt war, da die Missa Solemnis für Beethoven ein Projekt war, eine Komposition war, die eine Botschaft hatte, die in Worten formulierbar war.
Wow. So, Mr. Hecker, this is the first time that we have an actual, how shall we say, actor or embodiment of a person in this work. Can you tell us about this? I understand that you are trained as an actor, that you perform as an actor, but this installation seems to be kind of actorless. There don't seem to be a focus on one person or something. It seems like the actors are extremely abstract.
I am actually not an actor. I'm a director, and I don't act or perform necessarily. And also, this show was not meant to be a stage performance in a sense of an opera or a theater piece with music, but it was meant to be a concert installation. And a little bit going back to what I've said before, to have this concert be the essence of a TV drama series without the plot, in pure music. So, I mean, the question of abstraction is, I guess, an old and ongoing one when it comes to music. And the interesting thing with the Mr. Solemnis is that, like, it's funny to hear yourself, see yourself talking in that video, and then I'm here also talking. But what I've just said in the video is that unlike a lot of Beethoven's music, and except the Ninth Symphony maybe, but what Beethoven is most famous for is his abstract music, his music that is like how he created these symphonies or quartets or sonatas from these like small abstract musical cells. And in the Missa Solemnis, he did a work on the text that is probably unique in Beethoven's oeuvre. I don't know that he has ever dealt in such an intensity and such a lengthy period in order to compose or to set a text to music. So the message of the text must have meant a lot to Beethoven and cannot be underestimated. And somehow in his composition, he also edited the text. He edited the most obvious example is the Catholic Church, which he kind of hid away in his composition because it's only sung by the group of the tenors in a kind of staccato, whereas the rest of the chorus with the trombones singing credo, credo on top of it. So some conductors bring it out, but somehow Beethoven hid the Catholic Church in that text. And there are many other examples of that.
Okay. Ms. Bertelsmeyer, same question to you. I understand composers work a lot with abstraction. It sounds like you were having a very good time meeting these other composers and putting something together. It seems like personality is a very special part of this composition. It doesn't have to do with one person trying to make a music that is only recognizable as one person's music. It sounds like a complete community effort. Is that right?
Yes, and the special for me is that I have to be two persons in this work, because one person can do what she wants, and the other person I have to go back, because I have to try to find out what the other person wants. And the grammatic, the writing change often also the piece. Or for example, you have a really simple melody, but you never sing it simple. You always do a little bit pause, or you change it. And when the new music composer write it down, it seems really complicated because sometimes I got already recording and it was not a regular bar. So what is the best way that the orchestra do the things that the others want? And this is also difficult for me, but when I'm only also the medium, that is another, I need another personality where I'm not so important. So I think I had to be some persons in this work, different persons.
Mr. Hecker, and tell us, what was the reception of by Mr. Rayberg and the choir members? How did they, when they started rehearsing this music, when they understood that you were including non-binary poets and these kind of people, how did they react?
You know, it was a process. It was a quite a long period of time that we spent with this work, from the initial conception to the creation. And like I've just said, since the message of the text was so important to Beethoven, we were looking for artists from other genres who dealt with messages and who weren't necessarily making abstract music, but rather political and rather text heavy and meaning or message based music. And it was the challenge because I guess in our Christocentric Western world, this ordinario misse, or this text, is one of the key foundations of the world we live in. And with the good and the bad. And a lot of the problems we have today can be traced back to this text. So it was the idea to bring people, artists that are not necessarily meant by this text, to deal with it, to look at it and to treat it and to respond to it, which I guess was the main idea of the project.
Ms. Bertelsmeyer, how was the reaction on behalf of the choir towards working with you? When I hear Mr. Hecker talk about political messages, then I think, oh well, composers, they're not so political, are they? Is that not the case?
They're political composers. They're not political composers, but the good thing is that when we only use the music and not the words, they can interpret us in a different way. So I think music could abstract work without everything, but also it's a good medium to talk. It was really good working with them. I loved it. Yes, there are always, when you have a big orchestra, there's always somebody who think this and want this or this, and so the only way is to have a partiture, a score where everything is written inside, and then it's not so important how crazy is the artist behind it, because they have to understand what they have to do. They're an instrument. The whole choir is an instrument.
And Ms. Bertelsmeyer, were you surprised at any point by their reaction? Did you have to rewrite anything? Were you did you come to a point where they said, you know, this won't work, you have to do something new?
This was always, it was a really a work which was really lebendig, vivace. It wasn't not the choir, not the orchestra. It was also the artist that said, "Oh, how I said, you can write it in this way, really simple. You can write it complicated. You can do this." And yes, we tried things. And also the last year was really special, perhaps of this year because of the pandemic. And so we had also to, for the orchestra, they had to have distance. For a singer, had to have 3 meters left, 3 meters right, 5 minutes before. And they cannot sing so together like they sing normal together. And it was good and it was bad, because the conductor would have never let the choir sing like that, because I think, no, they cannot sing together this difficult music. But because of Corona, the sound was really different, because the people went through and they heard the music much more in the room, because the singers were really had much distance. The the orchestra at much more distance. So not every time a negative thing is negative for the result of something. So yeah, because of Corona, we had to change the most. Yes, this was the reason.
And
Corona.
Mr. Hecker, this Ms. Bertelsmeyer brings up, of course, the probably the most significant event that happened during the production and the pre-production. What is your view on this? How you got through this production with such challenges? I don't think I'm alone in watching the video and thinking this is extraordinary. What a wonderful, magnificent way to overcome such a challenge and to show the strength of humanity. Like you keep talking about Beethoven's text and talking about how even these challenges that would, like Ms. Bertelsmeyer said, in a normal time, nobody would possibly imagine you could make such a performance. It was done, and it was done very well, I believe.
Yes, I would even go as far as saying that ultimately the pandemic reinforced the ideas of the work and of the creation, because it forced us to think way further out of the box than we had planned and thought. We were already thinking out of the box, but we had to carry it a lot further because of the distance and hygiene measurements and regulations. And it was impossible to do the whole thing in one space with all the people. So fortunately, we had a lot of space. We had a lot of an ensemble of rooms. There was a queer nightclub next to this big industrial hall where they do concerts and performances. There were several foyers. There's this long corridor that you saw with a sound installation. There were 2 outside stages. And through the use of all these spaces, which was not initially intended, we were able to stretch and spread out the ensembles, the musicians, and then create this pathway through the concert, through the music, for the audience, which had the magnificent effect that there was no beginning and no end to it. And that was unusual to the public also, because usually you're used to arriving somewhere. You arrive first, you sit down, then the chorus arrives, like enters the stage, and then everybody assembles, and then we get a group start. We all start together. Not in this case, where the music was already playing when you entered the space, even for the first people. And it was still playing when you left, which also was a very interesting and I think great experience for some audience members, hard experience, because you want to stay, it's still going on. But it's no longer your part, but it's for the people that come behind you. It was like Dominikus, the dramaturg, speaks about it in the documentary. It's also an act of solidarity. Only through moving through the thing, through the concert, through the installation, it was possible to do it. It would not have been possible to have people like static in a room under these pandemic restrictions.
Wow. Let's take another look at the documentary.
I guess around the entry points to this process, I started asking some questions about the dominant narrative of Beethoven, of the canon of classical music that surrounds the Catholic vernacular, and began to ask the question of maybe what would exist as a kind of antithetical statement or language space to the Missa Solemnis, the Solemn Mass. from that, I kind of landed at this language, Polari, which is a kind of criminal queer language that was born in the UK and was meant to sort of work as a secret code for socializing and surviving in a time when the Catholic Church and government very much prosecuted homosexuality. Also, Polari being this kind of thread of language variety that compiled, say, traveler communities, criminals, and queer people and performers. And so sort of thinking of those different groups all together.
Great. So, Ms. Bertoldsmeyer, can you tell us a little bit about how this has been received by people going through, by the audience, or how shall I say, the concert installation goers? What have their reactions been?
I didn't talk with everybody, so I cannot say. Also, I had many positive. I think the good thing, what I only think of that now, is that every person inside was alone because of COVID. People had to have a distance of 1-2 meters, and so the dangerous thing is of this installation that somebody talks with the other, oh, did you hear this? Did you hear this? We have to go there, or do you have to go there? No, you have to go this way. You had to have the distance, so you were really alone with the music, and everybody heard something else. And you know, in the concert hall today, well, always you want to always to find the best place to hear everything, and the best place perhaps exists, but not there, because there you were behind the violins, or you were before the trumpet. So you were also, the public was also a composer in a way. Yes, because nobody heard the same.
Mr. Hecker, the same question to you. Alone together, like Mr. Bertoldsmeyer says, it seems like an artist's dream to have the complete attention of every individual.
No, I think, yes, Birke put it quite beautifully, that every audience member had their very individual concert and their very individual experience according to how they've moved through the space and how they've moved through the score ultimately. And ultimately they were a part of what we call the macro score, which was all rooms, all ensembles, all music being played together simultaneously in different places. And sometimes there were overlaps. There were moments where some music pieces happened exactly the same in the same room. Moor Mother, Kami wrote this piece where the chorus is laughing and crying. We had that for all the ensembles in all the spaces, and it happened simultaneously. And then it moved into something else again in the respective spaces, whereas the women's chorus and the nightclub sang something else than the big ensemble in the big room did, and so on.
But
yes, please.
Feeling always that is like a little bit difficult, because you know, you pay something, you go inside, and then you're in the other room and hear something really interesting in the other room and think, oh, I would love to hear, but you cannot go back, and the feeling to miss something that we have perhaps also the whole life, because I didn't go there, I missed this and this, and to accept this can be really difficult for some people and say, oh, I missed a big part or something, but they didn't miss, they heard always the music. But to learn to accept that I cannot do or hear everything is Herausforderung, challenge.
And Mr. Hecker, I believe it's like Miss Bertelsmeyer says, that sounds like exactly what a composer wants, is to have her or his music valued so much that people want to hear all of it all the time. But in this case, it seems like your documentary, your idea of moving through really seems to have succeeded, at least on an artistic level.
Yes, I would say so. And there was this is maybe a little too abstract again, but somehow there were two time concepts that were crossing each other. One is the Christian linear time concept that starts from a 0 point and then ends at a certain point in time, which of course is the score, and it's the beginning of the concert. Every ensemble, every musician had their starting point and their end point, and there was a linear movement through time. And then there was a movement through space, through the audience, who in a somewhat circular movement moved through that linear structure, because they would go into through the corridor, into the big room, through a sequence of foyers, into the nightclub, through other corridors, back into the big room. They would hear the big ensemble twice, and then into another foyer, into the exit, where there was another ensemble outside playing. And they were all ensembles followed that linear structure, obviously, because there's probably no other way to do it, but the audience had this circular movement through this linear time model, if that makes sense.
So Ms. Bertelsmeyer, really, in this case, like Mr. Hecker is saying, you force the audience to choose what they're going to listen to, like you said, and that's perhaps one of the special parts, no?
It's because they had to go alone inside, and then I think they measured it 2 seconds, 3 seconds, then the next person can go inside. Then they have to stand with distance because of Corona. They were really alone, and the way was written for them, but the way was for every person was another way. So one heard the orchestra from far away at this moment, one were in the room. So the lovely thing is to go 2 times. Then you like improvisation. When I do improvisation with students, I say it's good to do it in the concert composition 2 times because you see the difference. And it would be good. It should be that everybody has to go minimum 2 times inside to see. Yeah, it's different. It's the same, but it's different. But it's always like that. When I compose, I also have there I decide which way I go. But it's always
So it's kind of so the audience cannot choose where they are. You're saying that they are kind of like at an airport on one of the moving walkways, and they have to keep going.
But this was the reason really because of the distance of the COVID. It was in the other way, who allows the Gesundheitsamt for health wouldn't have allowed something else.
Okay.
We were also being closely monitored by the health administration. They sent somebody to check all the regulations. But to also answer your question from my side about the audience being able to choose or not, it was one continuous flow that very slowly, gradually moved through the spaces. And it was steered by the people behind you pushing and the people in front of you pulling, if you want. Not in a literal.
Fantastic. Let's take a look at another video, another part of the documentary.
letzten Endes war das für mich ein bisschen dann auch in diesem Corona-Sommer wie so eine Übung in Solidarität, weil man muss es einfach nur mal so denken, in dem Moment, wo man nicht weitergeht, verhindert man denen, die nach einem kommen, das Konzert. Und viele Leute haben das tatsächlich, glaube ich, nicht bedacht, aber für mich war das einer der essentiellen Punkte an dem ganzen Ding am Ende, dass dass alle laufen müssen, dass es geht, dass tatsächlich alle zusammenhalten müssen oder sozusagen sich ihrer Rolle in dem Ganzen gewahr werden.
Die Arbeit mit dem Chor war sehr divers, weil wir ja eigentlich 3 Chorgruppen hatten. Das war eine sehr spannende Idee, die teilweise von Corona geprägt war. Mehr Leute passten ja einfach nicht in einem Raum. Aber es hatte auch eine musikalische Komponente. Und es ist super toll, natürlich so einen großen Chor zu haben, wo das auch möglich ist. Dass man 3 Gruppen bilden kann. Eine Gruppe, die moderne Chorsymphonik abliefert, sozusagen eine Gruppe, die sich mit Josquin und Ähnliche beschäftigt. Und dann noch eine Damengruppen unten im Schwutz, die eher popartige Sachen vertonen. Das ist natürlich auch für ein Ensemble sehr interessant, einfach das machen zu dürfen.
Man kann das Stück auf jeden Fall als Zuschauerin begreifen, auch in der Komplexität, die es hat. Man kann halt nur nicht das ganze Konzert sehen. Aber das ist nicht das Gleiche.
Okay, so Mr. Hecker, can you tell us a little bit about preparing this whole concert installation as a visual experience as well?
It was a little bit like I work a lot with video in my own work, and it somehow was a little bit videographer's work, because you would try to conceive the course of the audience and see what they see. And unlike the situation where you are in a theater seat or in a cinema seat, and then there's a cut or there's a new scene or the curtain or a scene change or something, in this case, you would create that through walking. You would make your scene change by passing into that. We just saw that lady passing from a narrow corridor into that big room. And we tried to to create an experience where the spaces were ideally very contrasting. So you would go through a long, dark, narrow space and that opens up into a very big, bright space, and then go into a darker space again, a smaller space, and so on. And we guided that experience with light. We had a fantastic lighting designer from New York, John Torres, who lit the whole parkour, or the whole pathway. And yeah, I think the visual aspect was really the sequence of spaces and what people saw. Another visual aspect was that Moore mother, Kamei, could not travel due to Corona because she's based in Philadelphia. And she sent all these videos. That is why we have these videos. And they also added a strong visual component because she created some of those. There's one where, and that was that before it was before the election. It was Joe Biden and the Pope is in one of the videos that Kamei created for us. And they also helped to configure the visual experience of the audience.
So you weren't completely, how to say, in control of all the aspects of this. You kind of organized it. You didn't say, yes, I want that there, I want that there. You kind of allowed for a large collaboration. Is that right?
Yeah, one can say that, yes.
And how is that different from your other directorship work, Mr. Hecker?
Well, I do think that my other directorship work is moving into that direction also, of having a more horizontal hierarchy and to do closer collaborations with several artists. I very much enjoyed having this large team of people who were quite in control of what they were doing. No one was being told what to. Also, the artists that we invited, the guests that were presenting in the documentary also, none of them were told to do this or that, but we presented the work to them and left it open to their inspiration. And then we saw what they did and then saw how to put it together and place it and so on. So I guess collaboration was the nicest aspect of the working process.
Fantastic. Let's take a look at the final video segment for tonight.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. The privilege of God in one's own image. Have mercy.
Der Wortprogramm Eine neue Welt bedeutet für mich, dass die Musik wahrgenommen und beachtet wird, unabhängig von Kultur und Nation.
Die große Idee, die Beethoven ja hatte, alle Menschen werden Brüder und Schwester, dass man die versucht zu leben. Das kommt natürlich nicht von alleine und das klappt auch nicht so und vielleicht klappt es wohl nie, aber dieses Vorhaben spüre ich bei Ihnen sehr und die spürt man, glaube ich, auch an unserem Abend.
So tell us, Ms. Bertelsmeyer, so what is now happening with this concert installation? Is it over? Can people still go to it, or is it only to be seen now in the documentary? I think you need to turn your microphone on.
Okay, and it's over, but I hope in the future we can do it again, because we cannot let the orchestra and the chorus sit there the whole year. It isn't possible. But yes, we have documentary, and we hope we can do it again. And yeah.
Fantastic, Mr. Hecker. So, what do you hope that people who watch this documentary now, what if there's one thing or two things that they take away with them, what would those be? What do you hope that they'll get out of this?
Well, several different things. One is, of course, that we were also, when we were conceiving the material and the work, we were thinking of having this be a touring piece. And before the pandemic, that was, of course, what everyone thought was going to happen. And now it's very, still complicated, I guess, for a chorus to tour still. And one hope is that people see it and that it will be able to be performed again, because the documentary gives an idea, but it will, on that TV screen or computer screen, you will never have the experience of moving through the space and moving through the sound and moving through the orchestra and the chorus, which is such a rare experience as an audience member. So the biggest hope is to be able to do it again and to give people the opportunity to walk through that composition. And the second hope is to continuously have the classical music world collaborate with other genres and other working methods in a way where both learn from each other, because the way Moor Mother creates music is just as good as a classical music composer composes music, and I hope that there will be chances to learn from each other and collaborate more in this kind of projects.
Ms. Bertelsmeyer, what do you hope people get out of this when they watch this?
It's for me always difficult, because I see always in documentaries so much which is lost, because how Tillman told, I don't have the feeling to go through. I cannot hear everything, the whole atmosphere. For my example, I cannot never hear opera on DVD, because I think something, it's difficult. But for that, I think we have to find perhaps also a new medium to transport this, to make this documentary possible, so that really the people can decide where they go, or so, like a computer game or like that. But this is really big work, so I hope they play it again. This is the best, I think. I think I need the contact with people. I need to see the people. For me, that's really important.
And Ms. Bertelsmeyer, tell us, you've been through a lot, obviously, in the past year. What does the future look like to you? What can we hope to hear from you?
Concert starts again. Last year I had many commissions, really much commissions, more than ever. And I had this commission still, they were not cancelled, but they were postponed. So it could be that now I have a few things the same day. The problem is for composers more, not like a musician. The problem was not this year or last year. The problem will be after that, because I also talked with intendants of orchestra. They say we have now 40 pieces that were not premiered, and they were written, but they have not the space to show it. So I hope it doesn't. I don't know what happened. It could be a big wall. It could be they find new ways. I don't know.
Okay,
I hope it's good, but
so do we, and we look forward to hearing about your newest commissions and the newest performances of your music.
2 weeks I have a small opera in Mannheim. 2 weeks yes, I have always concert. Tetzlaff has played a violin piece this month for me. Goes on, and Bilbao. I think next week they play an orchestra piece of me in Russia. I forgot, and then comes orchestra piece of me in Bilbao, and
Fantastic, wonderful. Mr. Hecker, and you, what does after all of this, what does the future look like to you?
Yeah, it's similar to what Birke said, that the danger is that the system becomes clogged with these like unperformed works that have been created and commissioned. I have a show in December in Berlin. It's coming up on Kathy Acker and Bettina von Arnim. And then we're still working on this TV series with Radio Chorus, which is in a development phase, and another show in spring in Berlin as well.
Fantastic. So let's take a look at how we can watch the documentary. There it is, Rundfunkchor Berlin.de, the world to come. So we can simply go here and then we just click on that button and then we watch it. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's easy enough. And then we have here the director's note, the artists. Fantastic. Okay, so I will put that there in the chat room for everybody so everybody can watch the world to come. There it is. And let's see how we can stay in touch with the Rundfunkchor Berlin. There it is. Same webpage, rundfunkchorberlin.de. And to reach out to the Rundfunkchor Berlin, so we see there we have all of their upcoming concerts, I believe with the Berlin Philharmonic. And then there's an email address right there, tickets@rundfunkchorberlin.de. And is that right, Mr. Hecker? Then people can reach out to somebody there who can put them in touch with somebody?
That should be the case.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll put that there in the chat room. So thank you so very much to Mr. Tilman Hecker. Thank you very much to Ms. Birke Bertoldsmeyer.
It was our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
So let's take a look at what we have coming up next week. We have Brian Lindgren, New Explorations with the Electronic Viola. The story goes that Paganini commissioned Berlioz to write him a concerto. Rather than a composition filled with the violin fireworks he expected, Berlioz handed him Harold on Italy, an introspective lyrical work for viola and orchestra. After a cursory glance, Paganini refused to perform it. Then, upon hearing its premiere, he recognized an extraordinary artistic value in it and apologized to Berlioz. Brian Lindgren's exploration of the viola's expressive potential seems to follow a similar narrative. After a career of performing the celebrated viola parts of concerti, symphonies, and string quartets, unknown expressive possibilities unleashed by the digital revolution led Brian to build an electric viola and write and record his own music for it as a researcher and PhD student in the Music Composition and Computer Technologies program at the University of Virginia. Come welcome Brian to our show and get to know a whole new world of expressive possibilities. As always, all information about upcoming shows may be found at www.simeonmoro.com. So once again, thank you so very much to Rundfunkchor Berlin, to Mr. Tilman Hecker, to Ms. Birke Bertoldsmeyer. Thank you very much to Professor Lino Rivera, and thank you very much especially to Johanna Brücke of the Rundfunkchor Berlin for making this possible. Thank you, Johanna. Thank you to Professor Lino Rivera. Thank you to Agnieszka Rivole for her support of this show. Most of all, thanks to you, our participants, who make it all worthwhile. From Vienna, Austria, from Berlin, Germany, and from the Bay Area, California, goodbye, and see you next Wednesday.